All right, everybody. Hold on. There we go. I got a little happy with the buttons. Great to see you. It's Thursday, April the what day is it? April the 8th, and this is the April the 8th meeting of the Flipping America RIA. I'm glad you're here. I'm still getting used to this whole thing without the Zoom thing. The Zoom is like my safety net. I could look down and I could see that there are people actually here and listening. So I can't see who's here. I can't monitor like we normally do. But I do know that you guys chipped in yesterday and made me feel warm and welcome by just saying hello in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, just say hello to me. I'll see it there. I appreciate it so much. And also, if you have questions for Mark as we go along tonight, be sure to put them in there. Thursday nights, remember, is a little longer than Wednesdays. You know, Wednesdays we try to keep it to around 30 to 40 minutes because everybody's got to get back to work, theoretically. But Thursday nights, we've got time to dig a little deeper into the content. I'm really excited about this and excited about Mark tonight. And so we're going to just get rolling right now. First thing we're going to do is the pledge to ourselves. Here's the Flipping America pledge.
When I look in the mirror, I see the reason, the credit for my successes, the blame for my failures. I cannot make it without my team, and I tell them often. But when they succeed, it's because I chose well and I led well. When they fail, it's because I did not choose or lead well. I am the reason. I may have setbacks, but I cannot fail if I don't ever give up. You got circumstances. I got circumstances. We all got circumstances, but you won't find me under mine. My situation will not dictate my emotion. My circumstances will not control my results. External forces will not take away my power to choose. I cannot change the world, but I can change me and the way I relate to it. So I charge on. I am the reason. I have a massive vision, which creates massive pressure, leading to massive action, which is the only chance I have to achieve massive results. The world doesn't owe me success. God doesn't owe me success. No one is going to work for my success. Therefore, no one will work harder for their success than I will for mine. I will give my all and then a bit more. So tomorrow, my all will be more.
All right, we're back. Here's the announcements. This is what we're going to do tonight. Mark is coming up in just a few minutes. Like I told you, I'm very excited. His stuff on vision, just the vision part of this, is the best I've ever heard. And Mark, I know you can hear me. You're in the green room right now. I know you can hear me. And this is not a paid endorsement, my friends. What Mark has to say, what's coming up in a little while, it really helped me bring some clarity into my own life and sort out some things that I was dealing with. I didn't even know I was dealing with, but I was trying to make choices about some of the opportunities in front of me. Appreciate it so much. Also, Mark, I appreciate your friendship. I just want to go ahead and say that right now. And what did I just do? I hit a button here that was supposed to advance the slide, but it didn't. So let's go back here. Let's hit play slideshow in a window, and let's see if it works now. No, it worked when I was practicing, I promise. What is going on? Oh, you know what? It's because I'm at the end of the slideshow, y'all. That's awesome. I do practice. And I forgot to go back to the beginning of the slideshow. Now it's working. This is coming up next Wednesday. Boy, is that embarrassing or not? Is that awesome, Jake? All right. Okay. Anyway, next Wednesday, my good friend Monica Sawyer is going to join us, and we're going to talk about blissful cash flow. I've had her scheduled for a while. She's always a delight to talk to. She knows so much about what's going on in the world of real estate investing, and she's investing in other countries as well. Pretty cool stuff. And I said, so let's pick something that you're really excited about to talk about. And she said, what I'm really excited about is cash flow through the bore houses. And that kind of surprised me. But that's what we're going to talk about next Wednesday at noon. We're going to talk about the incredible success our Buyers Club members are having, generating huge cash flow on these inexpensive houses. And we've bought and sold several in just the last couple of weeks. It's been exciting to see, and our processes are getting better, and it's just getting better and better all the way around. All right, screenshot time. If you need some resources, if you need help finding deals, then this is a link. That first one is a link to a book I have on Amazon. You can get the book for $9.99 if you want the paperback, or if you want it on Kindle, you can get it for $3.99. And I tell you, in this book, I don't hold anything back. Well, maybe a couple of things, but I tell you the things that I did to start getting 100, then 500, and now it's over 15,000 deals in my inbox every week. I kid you not. It took some years to get that many, but I get a lot of deals, more than I can look at in my inbox. Then Driving for Dollars. If you want a Driving for Dollars program, use that link right there. If you need funding, we're going to hear from Bay Mountain Capital in just a moment. If you need gap and unsecured funding help with your down payment, there's another link for you there. If you want some help analyzing deals, flippingamericacomps.com, self-directed IRA, American IRA, you're going to hear from them in a moment. And if you need insurance, I've got a link for you there. I work with the National Real Estate Investors Insurance Group, NRIG. I love them. They're great people, and they understand what it is we're trying to do. And then if you want to find deals right from your MLS, I know that seems an impossible challenge, but every time I have Benson come around, he'll demo the program, and we'll take a look in the Atlanta area, and every single time we'll come up with a property that I want to make an offer on. So we use these programs in our business, and it's why I recommend them to you. If you have one of these devices or one of the other devices that uses Alexa, you can say these words. Say it in this order: Alexa, play the podcast Flipping America, and my latest show is going to play. And speaking of the show, Flipping America, the show started all of this, and it has become more than just a show. It started out as a coast-to-coast broadcast, and it remains today. AM/FM stations across the country, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, play the Flipping America show. And we took that show in 2019 and turned it into a podcast. People have commented, you know what? Every one of your podcasts is exactly 60 minutes long. That's right, because every one of them is a conversion from the 60-minute long show. And radio, we have to fill 60 minutes and we can't go 1 second over. So all the podcasts are pretty consistent that way too. We may change that up coming in the coming months, but that's the way it is right now. And then in 2020, we launched the Flipping America RIA, which this meeting is a part of. And I'm proud to report that we are now 30 chapters across the country and more than 10,300 members on meetup.com. That's pretty cool. And you're a part of it, and I'm glad you are. The Flipping America Academy is about to be unveiled. We're building up our inventory of courses, and it's courses, online courses from me and from others, and we've got some special things in store for that. The Flipping America Buyers Club launched last July, and it is going. We are getting ready to open up for more members, maybe in another few weeks. If you thought about joining the Buyers Club, maybe we'll go ahead and open up next week, since that's what Monica wants to talk about on Wednesday. But in fact, you know what? I'll just go ahead and tell you right now. We will open it up next Wednesday to take maybe 10 more members. But I limit how many members we take at one given time to make sure that we can accommodate you and get you the properties that you need. And we've got some new members right now that are still hungry. So then the trading platform, that's coming at the end of April. I'll say a lot more about it when we get there, but just hold on to your horses. It's going to be pretty cool. That's Flipping America. I hope that you'll join us. If you go to flippingamericaria.com or use that link at the bottom, bit.ly/FARRIA join, it takes you to the membership page. You can join this RIA for $10 a month. If you want access to the course discounts and so forth, you need to do the annual plan, which is $99. There's not a better bargain out there. The level of content and the quality of the guests that I bring and the teaching that happens here twice a week throughout the year, it's unrivaled, my opinion, but it's my show, so it's my opinion. All right. So you get access to the all of this content as we'll let these live streams stay up on the channels for a week or so, but quite often we're going to be taking them down. We'll have little snippets of them available for public consumption, but the members are always going to have access to the entire content. And then discounts on our courses, everything that's in the Flipping America Network, you'll have a discount. Most everything. Some of our third-party courses, that's up to the person who did the course. And then you'll have the opportunity just to network. You could lead your own group. You could lead one of our local chapters. It really doesn't take a whole lot in terms of qualification, and there's an opportunity to make money doing that. So check it out, bit.ly/FARRIAjoin. Now, that's the end of that. And now it is time to listen to a word from one of our sponsors, Bay Mountain Capital. Chip Cagle is here. Chip, good to see you, my man.
Hey, Roger.
All right. What's happening in the world of Bay Mountain Capital today?
Going good. I'm up in Chattanooga, Tennessee today. Had the Chattanooga Landlord Luncheon today and had a really good speaker talking about opportunity zones. If you were in the Chattanooga area, you need to join us on the second Thursdays at lunchtime, because that's why it's called a Landlord Luncheon. Anyway, also have one up in Knoxville. Usually they're the same week, but this month the second Thursday was before the second Tuesday, so that'll be next Tuesday. All right, so enough about that. Bay Mountain Capital, we're a sponsor of this show, and we are a hard money lender out of Dallas, Texas. I'm in Atlanta, and I represent the Southeast region. Right now we're lending in Georgia and Tennessee, soon to be Alabama. I'll put all that in the chat as to where we lend in those states. I'll also put in the chat what our terms are. But right now we can do up to 100% for experienced investors, and that can start at 9.9%. So I'd love to talk to you about it, and I'll put my contact information in the chat too.
All right. Thanks, Chip. We appreciate you. We appreciate Bay Mountain. And now, my friends, it's time for this week's property pairing video.
Hey everybody, Roger Blankenship here, and I'm going to talk to you today about a problem that seems to have no end in sight. And the problem is, if you're a cash buyer, you're going to identify with this immediately. The problem is wholesalers sending out bad deals. I get maybe 50 or 100 wholesale deals in my inbox every day. I'm grateful for it, and I appreciate the wholesalers out there doing the work. But I would really like to say, wholesalers, stop sending bad deals. But I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say something that's going to surprise you today, because I'm not going to blame the wholesalers. All right? Now, I'm going to pair this property because it cracked me up that anybody would send this out thinking it might be a deal. Here's the property. It's a property in Griffin, Georgia. Look at this beauty right here. And I've got some pictures of the inside going up here. I don't know that there's a whole lot that can be done to fix this property and make it worthwhile, especially when you consider this. The seller wants $32,000 for it. I'm looking at it right here on my little iPad, and I've researched the comps. One of the comps, the best comp, is similar in square footage. It's 100 square feet more, and it's sold retail for $120,000. Great, that's awesome. Except the fact that it's 2 miles away. No, it's 4 miles away, and it's across a major highway, and it is in the best part of Griffin, bar none. I mean, there's one really kind of nice area in Griffin where all the rich people of Griffin live, and this house is right there. It's the same size and everything, but it is not a comp, not any way, no how. So the other two best comps come in at 100, and then the other one's at 70. So let's just take the 100. I'm not going to quibble with it too much. It still may not be a comp. It's kind of far away. But let's just take that 100 as a comp. If you've got a property that looks like this, that you're buying for $32,000, and you're going to put about 60 or 70,000 in it to make it look like this, and then you're going to sell it for 100,000, how much money have you made? No money. That's right. All right, how are we going to pair up this property? Okay. Several months ago, back in the fall, my wife and I went leaf looking for a weekend, and we ended up in Asheville, North Carolina. And there's a cigar shop there in Nashville. So I stopped in and talked to the guy. You know me, I'm always looking to make new friends. And he said, we roll our own. We've got some that have been aged back here for 10 years and some for 15 years. And I said, okay. I grabbed a handful of each one. I said, I'll try them. We'll see how it goes. He said, well, you're going to love them, I promise you, but also you're going to love these. He took me over to where he had big bundles of them shrink wrapped. And he said, we take the same fine tobaccos that we use to make these premium cigars, and the leftover bits and pieces, we roll them up into these and we sell them for $1 a stick. So I bought 25 of them for $25. And I got home, and let me tell you, it's terrible. I don't know if it's even worth $1. And so when I'm thinking about this house in Griffin and thinking about these cigars, I think, I've got a perfect match. All right, now look. Here's my good humidor. Those cigars don't make... This humidor is cigars that I intend to smoke sometime in the next, 3 to 6 months. Those cigars didn't make this. The only cure for a cigar as bad as that one that I have is to go to my third backup humidor. I've got a couple other backup humidors too. So here we go. Here's the humidor. Got my water pillow in here trying to get some humidity here. And I'm going to hand one here to Jake because I'm going to let him try it here in a second. This is a no-name brand. And, it looks okay. It seems fine. You take it out. You give it a smell. And so maybe, 6 months in the humidor, I've done it some good. Get a little organized here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get my cutter out here. We're going to get this thing rolling. Going back to the V-notch. Okay. All right. Let's light it up. This cigar doesn't have a brand. Doesn't have much of a backstory. I just told you the backstory. And it doesn't have much of a construction. I will tell you this. This is never going to be an aficionado's cigar. It actually tastes better and draws better now after 6 months in the humidor than it did when I first got them. But still, nothing to write home to mom about. Okay, so what kind of whiskey are we going to pair this house with? I thought about it for a little while, and realizing what we were looking at in terms of this property, the optimum whiskey is Fireball cinnamon whiskey. That's right. And then I thought about it a little bit more. And it's a shame that I used the Kentucky Fire Cured cigars last week because fire as a cure is probably the best way to cure this house in Griffin. What you should do is take this. I'm not even going to taste it. There's a use for this, but it's not sipping. Okay? Take this, pour it out on the front porch, light this, throw it in there, and you can fire cure the house. And that's the best match. Now look, I know it sounds like I'm being rough, and wholesalers, please don't stop sending me the deals, okay? I may be rough on the wholesaler here for a minute, but here's the deal. Wholesalers wouldn't send out these deals if you cash buyers wouldn't buy them. So I'm not blaming the wholesalers. They're hustling. They're pounding the pavement. They're getting deals. They're getting the deals in. They're negotiating the best deal they can. Are they being greedy? Sometimes. Are they asking too much of a fee? Sometimes. But guess what? They wouldn't do that if you would never buy it. If you would just hold to your guns, use common sense, and buy the right thing, then they wouldn't be able to sell. Did I leave that in the camera frame? Sorry about that. So here's the thing. They wouldn't keep sending these deals out if you wouldn't keep buying them. P.T. Barnum said there's a sucker born every minute. And that doesn't mean the curious people who might pay to go to their circus and see the bearded lady and watch the elephants dance. That means some of you who have paid $50,000 to go to some hotel room guru's real estate training course, and you feel like you got to justify that course by buying anything that comes along. Just say no. Don't do it. Hold your fire. Let's use the power of the market to force the wholesalers to give us a better deal. How about that? In the meantime, find something better to smoke, find something better to drink, and I'll be finding better deals. That's it for today.
When you choose American IRA as your self-directed IRA administrator versus the other guys, you're choosing a path that will save you money without sacrificing expertise or performance. Because unlike the other guys, we do not work on a sliding scale of fees. We offer one low set annual administration fee. Let's take a closer look. As your assets grow with American IRA, your annual fee remains the same. The other guys base their fees on the number of assets you own or the value of your account. So over the life of your self-directed IRA, your annual fees will continue to increase year after year. What does this mean for you? When you work with us, you'll have more money to put towards the important things in your life, like retirement. We know that there are already enough places your money has to go. From your state and local government to the IRS. Don't let your self-directed IRA administrator take more from you than they should. So with American IRA, no matter how your assets grow over the life of your investment, you'll pay one low set annual fee, putting you in total control of your financial future. Choosing American IRA means you're choosing expertise, value, and performance.
All right, we are here now, and we've got Mark. Mark, can you hear me all right?
I sure can. How are you?
All right. Somebody put in the chat that you can hear us both just fine, and we'll take it from there. Great to see you, man. And thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time. All right, let's dive right in. Okay, you are the landlord coach. You wrote the best-selling book, The Time Wealthy Investor. How did that come about?
Well, I would love to say that it was all of those glitter and rainbow sort of stories where I bought one property and leveraged it perfectly in the next, and then went and it just continued on perfectly. There was nothing that ever went wrong. Everybody paid on time, and maintenance issues were basically non-existent and all that stuff. That's not my story. My story is as much one of I bought a bunch of properties, created this horrible job for myself, and instead of actually putting systems in place, I just kept buying more properties because I figured buying more would have to be better because that's what many of the books I was reading at the time were focused on, and yeah, I was stuck on stupid. So because I just kept buying, because that's kind of where I was stuck on, I wound up in this really horrible place with, at the time, 92 rental units, and completely time bankrupt and time weary. And it was a horrible time. And then, of course, I was not only leveraged with my time, but I was leveraged heavily financially. And I was buying these properties highly leveraged, and unfortunately, it all just fell apart back in 2008, 2009. So the book is really based on how I dug out of that and how I became time wealthy and not just time weary.
Okay, so well, we all need to go read the book, but how did you do it? How did you turn things around?
It was one of those things where we talked a little bit offline about the VIP method, and that was really it. It was one of those things where I was literally laying flat on my back in a hospital bed, and because I had been working 18, 19, sometimes 20 hours a day, dragging myself out of bed at 6 a.m, working till 2 or 3 a.m, and doing it all again, grabbing naps in the middle of the day at Lowe's parking lot for half hour here or there. It was just madness. Well, that sort of pace catches up with you, and I ended up getting sick, and then I ended up getting double pneumonia, and I almost died in the hospital. And because of that, I'm sitting in the hospital, and it was one of those things where I was literally just laying there in the hospital, just trying to wonder, like, well, how in the world am I going to get out of this mess? I can't even if I wanted to answer my phone, I couldn't. And I'm not a complete idiot. I'm certainly not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm thinking, okay, well, how can I get out of this mess? And it was just, it kind of said, why am I even doing this? What is this even all for? Why am I just give up and go get a job and not, check my brain at the door at 8 o'clock when I get there, and I get to leave at 5 and don't have to worry about it. Like, why, what am I doing this all for? And that's really where the beginnings of the VIP method came to be. And the VIP method, as you know, of course, and maybe some of your listeners now are about to find out, stands for vision, infrastructure, and process. And really, that's the whole basis of everything. Is everything for me starts with vision. So that's really the basics. That's the beginnings of how I started getting dug out of it. And the vision, infrastructure, process method, I didn't really know what it was called at the time, but that's really that's
Yeah.
what I used
All
to
right.
get out of it.
That's why I jumped in here. I wanted to ask you about that. It became vision. That's nice. Nice little acronym, VIP, vision, infrastructure, process. But did it start out like that? Let's go back if you can and dig in your brain. And what are some of the thoughts that you were thinking that got you thinking, first of all, about vision? Why don't we just unpack each of those a little bit? And while I'm asking the questions about the background, what was happening inside your head that made you start that ended up becoming the thing that you now call vision?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I was deathly afraid because I didn't know if I was going to die. And I don't mean to make it super heavy on the show, but it was the only way I could actually breathe when I got there. Now I grew up with asthma. For those of people who've ever had breathing problems, it's like trying to breathe through a cocktail straw. And that's really what it was like. And it got real, real bad. And the only way that I could breathe was kind of to slump over and put pressure against my chest. So I drove myself to the hospital and went to the, check in, and she said, well, what's wrong? And I said, I'm having real trouble breathing, and I'm not real sure. I'm trying to get over a cold, whatever. And she says, okay. So she puts me in this room, and she says, well, we'll bring someone by, check you out, get you a breathing treatment if that's what you need. And, with that, she left the room and she shut the door. So as I was laying down on this gurney, I'm in this room by myself, and I started to mouth for air. Like I was starting to pant, right? Like I couldn't catch my breath either way. And laying down was probably one of the worst things that I could have done. But it got to a point where I couldn't get up because I didn't have enough energy, couldn't get enough oxygen in me, and I couldn't holler for help. And I was like, oh crap, I'm kind of in a quagmire here. Like, I hope someone comes along soon, because I can't go anywhere. I can't holler for anybody. I can't go for any, So, eventually it got to a point where the room started to close in on me, where you start to just see a tiny pinpoint of light off in the distance. And I was like, oh man, this is where I'm going to die, and I closed my eyes for what I thought would be the last time. And a few minutes later, at some point, someone came in the room and saw that I was in kind of a desperate state and got me this breathing treatment. But that in that moment right there, it's funny because that hypoxia gives you euphoria. It's actually not a bad way to go, I suppose, but I was very euphoric. I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is it for me. Like, here I am. This is how I'm going to die. But afterwards, when I had the reality set in, wow, like how close I felt like I was to dying. And I did it all to myself. So it wasn't like this, carving in the sky, or, the Thunderbirds, wrote out VIP in exhaust trails. It wasn't like that at all. But it was one of those things. It's like, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? And that really became the foundational parts of vision in terms of everything that was going to drive me from that point forward. So in that moment, it was to get healthy and to get out of the hospital. And then it was to get, emotionally solvent. And then it was to get financially solvent and get control of my calendar. And those little pieces of vision, even though it was really the only thing I was focusing on, that was really it. And it really pointed out to me so many things that real estate investors, like I was at that moment in time, where I was doing house flips and I was doing I was doing a wholesale deal here and there. I was doing contract sales and purchases. I was doing landlording. I was doing all the maintenance and all the other stuff that was coming in, the operational stuff. I was chasing so many rabbits, I wasn't catching any. So that vision piece was a really critical component to the rest of the VIP method and the rest of the way that I dug myself out of that hole.
Well, I wanted to ask you, it sounds like when you started naming all those things, that sounded more like goals really than your overall vision. I sat down with I started attempted to start a business a few years back, and I sat down with the gentlemen that were going to be my partners, and I wanted to have a serious conversation about a vision. We need a vision statement. And so I said, y'all want to throw out some things, and I'll put it up here on the board. Well, let's talk about our vision for this organization. And one guy said, here's all the vision we need. Make a lot of money. And I said, all right. Well, does anybody else have anything you want to add? And one of the other guys said, yeah, a whole buttload of a lot of money. And I could tell right there, they weren't taking it seriously. And we never did make any progress. And surprise, surprise, that company never really got off the ground.
Yeah.
And you and I probably can see a reason for that, but I think those two guys are maybe a little mystified to this day why it didn't work. So when you say vision, what do you really mean?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think often when what I may have said certainly sounded like goals, because you're thinking, well, Mark, to get healthy, that could be a goal, right? I mean, that could be certainly right. But you got to understand, for me to get healthy, and I had a very distinct vision of what that looked like. And I'm just, for the sake of time here, I didn't go specifically into the details, but for me, getting healthy looked like, well, first, let me get out of the hospital. That's a goal. First, let me be able to breathe without having to take prednisone every 6 hours, right? Let me get to a point where I can actually stand up and walk across a room and not feel like I have to take a knee, right? So I had all these intermittent goals, and the way that I see it is that vision is really kind of the ultimate destination, if you will, and the goals are the waypoints along the way. So for me, even though you might say, well, there's the way that I have broken down vision. I think there's vision that it comes down like a funnel. That's why I believe that vision is. And if you think of like vision, think of like when you were a toddler and you had a vision to walk, right? But you saw other people running, and then you maybe even saw the oldest sibling above you, or maybe other kids. Maybe you even saw them riding a bike, and you thought, well, man, I really would love to ride a bike, but probably that's the distant vision. That's probably a little further off down the road. For me, maybe I should just work on standing up, right? So that's the narrow part of your vision, and that's really, I think, the progression. And then as that slides down and that becomes reality for you, the next piece slides into, okay, well, what's next? What's the next piece of my vision that I want? Like, for some of you, you may want a hot tub, right? You're like, man, I don't care. I want a hot tub. And you might think, okay, well, does it make sense for you is that a realistic vision for you if you live in a 1-bedroom apartment? I mean, it could be, I suppose, but does it make sense, right? I could make an argument that most people could say, well, probably not. I mean, you'd have to give up your entire living room mostly for most people. So you might say, well, if I really want a hot tub, that's probably, first thing I might want to do is get out of my 1-bedroom apartment and get into something that would be conducive to me having a hot tub, right?
Something with a balcony.
That's why I'm saying, like, it slides down. The closest held most narrow part of my vision is the bottom of the funnel. And that was what was the most important thing for me. And for me, getting healthy and getting out of the hospital was absolutely an incredibly important part of my vision.
All right. So what would you say to someone, and you can help me from a meeting many years ago, now retroactively, what would you say to someone who says, well, my vision is to make a lot of money?
Right. And I mean, and I would say, okay. And I would try not to do it in a way where they would feel bad, because I often have the same conversation with people who say, well, I want 100 rental units. And if you've heard me maybe speak before, I say, well, why not 99? 99 wouldn't do it, right? And they go, well, yeah, 99 probably work. Yeah. Well, what about 93? 93 is a pretty good number
And
too.
how
I mean,
much
I think
better would it be with 120?
yeah. Like or 111. I think that's divisible by. I think that's a prime number. Why not? Prime numbers are good, right? I mean, so I kind of poke fun at them a little bit, and then they get to the point where they realize that they're confusing the number of rental units with the life output that they think that's going to buy them, right? And for whatever reason, the number of rental units is always units of 25. No idea why. It's always units of 25. Yeah, I want 50 rental units. I want 100 rental units, right? Those sorts of things. So a boatload of money that I wouldn't even take that seriously.
So I was just thinking, you know what I would say if somebody came up to me and said, I want 111 rental units because that's a prime number. I would just say, well, that's odd. Okay.
You know what? Really?
Just kind of nerd out a little bit.
And here I was going to ask you what you were going to do with those other 23 cigars. So now I know I'm good for the next 23 years of birthdays. So that's.
I will tell you, after we shot that video, I took the one that Jake had lit and we cut it open just to see how bad it was inside the construction. And there's a clear reason why they don't draw well and they don't smoke well. I mean, it's just all jumbled up with bits and pieces. It was horrible. Yeah. So what I'm going to do with the rest of them, I'm not really sure, but I'm probably going to just throw them away.
Yeah. Give them as gifts for people that send you bad wholesale deals.
That's a good idea. Write that down.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you get a bad cigar, you know why. You have only yourself to blame.
Yeah. Just in case you don't get the message, we're also going to send you a lemon with it.
Right.
Okay.
No, but the vision piece, in terms of that, to answer that question is if someone was going to say, I want to make a boatload of money, I would challenge them on that. I would say, well, what does that mean? What does a boatload mean? And it's, and that to me, a lot of times I don't even go that far down because it's not serious. And you knew well enough at that point to know that they weren't being serious with it. And if someone said, if someone comes to me as a coaching client and I ask them, what is their vision? What are they trying to accomplish? And they start coming to me with very specific numbers. Well, I want to make $23,211, per month, every month for the next 6 years. I'm gonna like, wow, you've piqued my interest. Why is that number? Where did you back into that number? And almost always it's because they want to pay for their aging parents' health care. They want to send their kids to college and it's going to cost X amount of dollars. They want to take their bride or their significant other on a vacation once a quarter and it's going to cost X amount of dollars. Like they back into that lifestyle and they know very specifically. So vision has to be well defined. It has to be. I don't care if you're talking, I don't care if you're talking to me or Tony Robbins or, anybody. I mean, you have to have a vision that is clear so you actually know where you're going.
So what you're really saying is vision is not the stuff like the money, that's just the means. The vision is what you ultimately want to accomplish with the stuff, the life you want to live.
Yeah. The part of the vision has to include a calendar component to it. And that's where I get and I'm not, I've got a fairly good following, but I'm not as popular because it's not as sexy. It's not, people they go, well, I'll get the 30,000 a month and I'll figure out the calendar after that. And that never happens. And if you start flipping that on its head, and I mean, keep in mind, I was bringing in $65,000 a month when all that happened. Granted, I wasn't keeping all that. I had stuff that was leveraged, but I was still doing pretty well. And my life was the definition of hell. And that was just because I was focusing on the money component, thinking that I would get time freedom and time wealth. And what I ended up doing was I created all these hundreds and hundreds of little jobs for myself that no amount of time I could have ever accomplished it. And it was a snowball effect. So that's where we focus on, specifically, and specifically what is it that you want, and gets really, really clear. And it's a little unnerving for people to actually start to put this stuff down when I say, what is it that you want? Because here, especially here in America, our world is our oyster. We want everything. We want it all. But when you really say, okay, do you really want that one thing? Then do you really want a Ferrari more than you want a close relationship with your children? Maybe you do. I'm not here to judge you one way or the other. I have a thought on that, but I mean, if you say, well, I really don't get along with, my kids are kind of off on their own. They're adult children and I have a great relationship with them already. Yeah, I kind of want a Ferrari now. Okay. That's nothing wrong with that. Or whatever it is. But that's where and I say this all the time, as cool as it might be to have a Ferrari, or as cool as it might be to have a boat, it's not cool to have a boat that sits on a trailer in your driveway. And that's because you need the time to enjoy that stuff, right? So that's really where it starts to get really narrowed down and really hammered home in terms of what's important to you, and start to categorize that stuff into what's your closely held vision and what do you want to pursue first.
Okay, just a reminder, everybody, if you have a question for Mark, put it in the comments wherever you're watching, and hopefully things are linked up. I should see the comment here, and we'll get Mark to address it. Okay, now, all right, so we have vision. Now, I wanted to ask you one little thing, just to clarify the calendar component. Does that mean you're basically giving yourself a deadline to reach a certain thing? What does the calendar component mean?
Right. So the calendar component is really more like what your ideal day would look like. What's your ideal time? Right. Okay. So it's really not. It is. Yeah. I mean, it would be ideal to have. I mean, I like goals that are within 3 years. I don't really like going beyond 3 years, and that's just my personal preference.
Because when you said the time component, I was thinking of goals that have a deadline. Right. Yeah. Right. But that's not what you're talking about with the time component, the calendar component of a vision.
That is correct. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up and to make that clear, because I don't like long-term goals. I don't know about you, but every now and again I grew up in New York, and I don't know if you've ever ran into those people that have a 5-year plan, and that was 25 years ago, and the 5-year plan, like the clock never started. And yeah, that's part of my 5-year plan. I'm like, dude, you're almost 50. Like, when is that ever going to start? You've been saying that since you were 18. But I like plans that are a little bit shorter. And I think if it's going to take you longer, then I would like to break it up into smaller bite-sized chunks. That's just me, because I feel like it's really easy to hide within activity. Like, you can just get really busy doing a lot of running around in circles, especially, the people out in the real estate world doing the hustle. There's a couple of things wrong with the hustle. I mean, don't get me wrong. I work hard and I like working hard, but I like working hard for things that I like doing. And the problem with the hustle is it gets very addictive. That's number one. And the second component to that is it's very easy to just get busy being busy. You're not effective at all. So, are you efficient? I mean, you can be very efficient at doing a lot of the wrong things, but are you effective? What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? And you can't tell if you're effective if you don't know in advance what you're trying to create. So that's where the vision is so important, that, once you have that understanding of what it is that you're trying to create, then you can say, okay, well, what 1 or 2 steps that I make today that's going to get me closer to that, to that end, to either that intermediate goal or another step towards my vision. So the calendar component is really what the ideal day would look like for you. And then the calendar component, the timeline would be, let's say I want to take a vacation once every quarter. Okay. So when would that be in the calendar?
All right. This is Mark Dolfini, and we're talking about the VIP method, which brought him from death's door to write the book, The Time Wealthy Investor. And if you have questions for Mark, be sure you put them into the comments and we'll get them to Mark. Now, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the I. The I stands for infrastructure. What does it mean, and how did this idea come to you? How did it evolve?
Yeah. And so after I kind of got an idea in terms of, vision, what am I doing this for? The infrastructure piece, it was more along the lines of people that they were trying to help me in my world at that point in time. And I was they were kept saying to me, well, you need to hire help. And I thought, everything is in my head. What good is help going to do? And it wasn't going to improve my state of things in the universe by hiring someone, walking them into a room, pushing them into the middle, shutting the door, and yell, "Do work," right before the door slammed. There was no basis for anything at all. There was no infrastructure. There was no desks, no chairs, no computer software. There's no phone systems. I mean, my phone system, looked like this, and if you have a phone system, not with my wife's picture on it, but if you have a phone system that looks like this, you don't have to, you don't get the chance to complain. You don't get the right to complain anymore when people call you in the middle of the day or the middle of the night or anything else. That's your fault. That is 100% your fault. So from that perspective, the infrastructure is really the bones of the business. And the bones is the desks and the chairs and the software, the property management software, the accounting software, the all the intricate little bones of the business. But it also includes the asset class, and the asset class selection is really, really important. So if you're thinking, well, I'm looking at, I don't care what it is, if it's single family homes or multifamily or mixed use commercial or self-storage units, whatever it is, it's that asset class selection that also has to be considered when you're putting your infrastructure together.
Okay,
So
but now do you just need to pick one asset class, or can you go over more than one?
That's a question I get a lot. I do believe that you can cross over a little bit, only to a certain degree. And I know people will argue with me about this, but this is just my truth. So this is the way it's worked for me. If it works for you differently, then that's amazing. But I don't like to go too far off the yellow brick road when it comes to asset classes. So if I'm dealing strictly with a residential type client, it's going to be avatar based and not so much it's not so much property based, but avatar based, meaning who do I want to work with? Who specifically, what is my ideal client avatar? So I'll give you an example. If I don't want to work with college students, does it make sense for me to buy college properties? Probably not. If I don't, if I am a member of my target audience, meaning that, I'm married and I've got a couple of kids and, I can relate to them, right? Now, I'm not treading on fair housing here. It's not saying that I won't rent to somebody on that. So don't confuse that. I'm just saying, who do I want to work with? Who can I relate to? Right. Can I relate to people that, go and spend all their money at a casino every single weekend and, and live in, from paycheck to paycheck? I can't relate to that because that's just not my lifestyle, right? I'm not judging it. It's just, I can't relate to that, right? Can I relate to a single 20 something who's going out every night of the week and, and has a certain lifestyle? I can't relate to that. That's not what I'm about, right?
Now, this
Again,
sounds
not a
like,
judgment.
though, it sounds like you're not talking about asset class. It sounds to me like you're talking about demographics.
I am.
You're
And
really
that to
breaking it
me,
down.
I do. And that's for that avatar. That's who I want to work with. And originally I was just buying whatever properties were for sale. And that was it was a bad strategy for me because once I figured out, well, hey, I'm actually really good at managing this type of asset class. And I didn't care. I mean, to me, just because, I'm identifying my ideal, my client avatar does not mean that I'm not going to rent to somebody that's not qualified. Absolutely not. And you should not. And shame on you if you aren't, right? I mean, it's not only against the law, but you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right.
So if let's just clarify now, you're talking subgroups within the asset class that I might call single family homes. There's single family homes, and then you're looking at a particular demographic, and if that's your avatar, I love the marketing buzzword, way to go, Mark.
Right.
Anyway, if you're working with that, then that's going to kind of dictate where you look for properties to buy, because that's who the likely tenants are going to be, right?
100%.
And so, okay, Now I can see, and this is brilliant on your part, I could see how this is going to ultimately save you time because you
Absolutely.
get repetition and you can get economies of scale. They're going to be in the same areas. You don't have to drive
Mhm.
all over creation. I get it. I
Yep.
like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me change it up just a little bit.
All right. I wanted
I
to
know.
interject one little thing though.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am a single family guy, single family homes. And I did one thing and did one thing really well for the first 7 or 8 years. I only bought houses at the foreclosure auction and I rehabbed them and sold them. Then I started wholesaling some of them. And then when the hedge funds came to town and things tightened up, I had to learn other ways to buy properties because the foreclosure auction was out. And so I mastered one thing first and then I branched out from there.
Yeah,
But even
absolutely.
then, even now, with 2,000 properties under my belt and 1,000 full rehabs, even then, when I branch out into another asset class, I tread lightly. And what I like to do best, like if I'm going to buy into apartments, I'm sending money. I'm not going to become an apartment operator. I don't think it's
Right.
ever going to happen. Because of what I learned from you, Mark, I'm not going to jump out there and try to learn a whole new game. I'll just put some money passively into the guys that are doing it well. How about that?
That's brilliant. And I had to learn that really the hard way. In fact, I have a daily, I call it a daily-ish show because I don't feel like doing it every day. Um, I mean, honestly, I just don't want to create a job for myself, but I actually love it because I don't have to do it every single day, and the expectation isn't there. But on the daily-ish show today, I covered that very thing, like how many businesses do you own, and there's this almost like badge of honor, like, well, I own 5 businesses. And I'm like, okay, do you own 5 businesses or are you the owner operator of 5 businesses? Because one of them I'm going to be impressed and the other one I'm going to feel bad for you. Because if you own 5 businesses, that means that you are managing metrics and then you're doing a great job and you've got the formula down where you have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish. And then, you build out all the systems and then you either hire it out or you outsource it, and then you'll step aside and then you just monitor it and you step in and tweak what you have to do and then step back and make sure that it's running well. That's the formula, right? That's the formula. What ideally should be done. I mean, this isn't, I'm not saying anything more than Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth 38 years ago, right? But
Wow,
what the
has it been that
standard,
long?
yeah, if you can believe it. It was published, I think the original one was published in the 70s. But the E-Myth Revisited was later on, but what for me what the standard formula looked like was start a business, work like crazy, work from, morning, noon, and night, never stop thinking and obsessing about it, and then start up another business because I'm sure that that's going to feed the other one. And and then and for the name of diversification, right? And then and repeat until you're working like a madman and go, oh my gosh, why does my life suck? Right? So that's the formula that I followed for years until I realized, why am I doing this? I mean, I'm chasing so many rabbits, I'm never going to catch any of them. So
All right. So we've talked a little bit about vision. We've talked a little bit about infrastructure. And that brings us to our last letter, which is the letter P, and that's process.
yeah, process is really how you do stuff. Now, this is where you get granular. And this is where if you have stuff that you saw or heard or read in a book somewhere that you like, hey man, I really like that idea. I like that tactic. I really think that that's great. If you've been paying attention at all, you notice that I started with vision and it's starting basically with strategy. What is it I'm trying to accomplish? What does victory look like? So this is where we get to the tactics and this is probably why I'm not as popular as other people, because they lead with tactics and the tactics, and then they try to shoehorn a strategy around it. I'm thinking, man, that is so backwards. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just, for me, that's not the way I think. I think it makes so much more sense to come up with a strategy of what I'm trying to accomplish in the first place, and then fill in the tactics fill in the infrastructure, and then fill in the tactics next that runs on that infrastructure.
But you know
So
what they're doing is it's a marketing approach called meeting a felt need, or scratching where they itch.
yeah,
People, they're addressing. A lot of people don't really want to think things through. They just want to know how to make a lot of money.
right, right.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead. I'm with
no,
you.
you're right though. And that's, and that's why, I'll probably never be, in front of a crowd of 50,000 people going, "Yay, tell us more, top end, top end stuff." Because, the bottom, I'm not saying that the bottom end stuff isn't, the tactical stuff isn't relevant. It's incredibly relevant. That's why there's a P in the VIP process. But, from the landlord, in the way that I teach it actually referred to a landlord cycle. So, you have your FAQs, your frequently asked questions that you identify. You have your SOP, which is for the military folks out there, what SOP is. It's standard operating procedure, right? But the way that I teach this is what I refer to as the landlord cycle. And a landlord cycle, really quick, is really, it's about bringing them from day 0 to day 365 through the landlord cycle. So day 0 is obviously where you're making $0. Someone hands you keys, whether that's at a closing table or you're at a, that's a resident handing you the keys. And your job, your sole purpose at that point is to get from day 0 to day 1 as quickly as possible. So it's really about getting, and I do that with a vacancy checklist and make sure you run through the checklist as quickly as possible, because you are losing, if you get in your head that you don't rent properties, but you sell time, if you get in that paradigm, every day that goes by is a day of unsold inventory that you're never getting back. So if you can get into that mindset of getting your stuff turned quickly and getting those properties re-rented, that's one major way that you can influence your bottom line right away.
Did you
But
did
so
you invent that idea of selling time, or did you get that from somebody else?
I think it just came. If it did, I'd be honest with you, I don't remember. I just know that it was one of those things that it was. You know what? I will. I think it was really more about, because if you remember my background, I came from a hospitality background. So you have those days of unsold inventory, which is the empty hotel rooms. So I think that might have maybe incorporated it from that. A lot of what I have actually I did borrow from the hospitality industry, because I worked for the Marriott for several years. Prior to that, I worked for a small regional hotel chain. So yeah, I probably did infuse that from somewhere along the way.
Okay.
But so anyway, so the day you go to day 1 where you're handing someone the keys, they're handing you a check, and now you go to day 7. Now some of these numbers are a little bit nebulous, but day 7 is the end of the onboarding cycle. So the onboarding cycle is, it used to be when I would onboard residents, it involved something that resembled me throwing keys at them and me shutting off my phone and running away. It was something along those lines, because I didn't want to hear from them. I was so worried that they were going to complain. And of course, there's no worse feeling at 20 or 30 minutes after a resident moves in and you see them calling on your cell phone. You're like, oh man, I do not want to answer this phone. That's just the worst feeling in the world. So when but
they don't often call you to say, "Oh, thank you, this place is beautiful. It's even better than
this place was the cleanest place I've ever been. I don't have to do a thing. Thank you so much."
Yeah,
that's never times? Yeah, that never happens. But now, because we're so specific with the onboarding process and walking through and doing move-in inspection videos and doing all these things, and if there's a problem, we own it right away.
Yeah.
So, and this is all stuff I cover in the book, but
hey, let me jump in here, Mark, and I will tell you all a secret that I learned based on this very conversation. When I have an issue with something that I've ordered, or a problem or something like that, and I call up the tech support, just everybody keep in mind, all these people ever hear is problems. All they ever hear is somebody that's frustrated by something that didn't work right or was broken when it arrived or something like that. So what I have discovered is, if I start the conversation with something like this, "Hey, look, I know that all you ever hear is complaints and problems and issues. And I just want to say, I buy from your company because I like your stuff. And I know that this little issue I'm having right now is not your fault. I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset. and I know that you're going to do everything you can to help me because that's why they pay you money to be on the phone. So here's the issue. Man, it changes the tenor of the conversation.
Oh,
If
absolutely. I
all
love
of you
that.
would do that when you have a complaint, you get along better with the people that you might get like your remedies better. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's gold.
That's a segue. Back to you.
And that's gold. And you got to keep in mind, if they're making decisions about buying again from you already, and you're not making money when you have to turn units all the time, and when you have to, because again, even if they kept the place really well, the chances that you're gonna at least have to touch up the paint, you're gonna at least, and you're still gonna have to find another resident. You're gonna have all these costs, right?
Right.
Especially with your time. So if you can find them, then especially if they're good residents, you want to keep them, and this is why the onboarding process is so important. So have a very well thought, very distinct process in terms of how you're going to onboard them from and just the small stuff. You reach out to them within a few days. Hey, how are things going? How are you guys doing? Because what if I move to Atlanta? Okay, now I have friends there. I know the Atlanta market well enough. I wouldn't know a chiropractor there. What if I hurt my back moving my stuff in? What if my car started to act up when I went to start it the second day, and I'm like, man, I don't know where to bring. I mean, I don't know where to bring my car, right? I mean, you don't know these things because I don't know these things because I'm not from there. So like, what if you just recognize them as human beings for just a second and say, how are things going? Did you guys get moved in okay? I mean, everything going well? Okay, cool. That's great. Hey, if you need anything at all, let us know. Like, if you need a dentist or, chiropractor or anything like that, I mean, I've got connections in the area. Just let me know. Right. What if we did that and they go, oh my gosh, now I feel like I've got a partner. I feel like I've got a connection, that's someone who actually cares about me. Because I think too often that people forget this is a people business. And the more you can remember that, the more successful you're going to be. And that was one of the key shifts for me when I really started to get traction and started keeping people longer, and they would renew, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm actually starting to make money on that property because I'm not turning it every 8 months, and I'm getting better residents and these sorts of things. So really quick, I'll wrap up the landlord cycle real fast.
Yeah, I was going to get you back to that.
Yeah. So you go from day 0 to day 1, getting properties turned and getting them moved into the day 7, the onboarding cycle. Then you got, obviously at some point you're going to have a maintenance cycle, and that maintenance cycle runs in there continually. So generally at the end of the onboarding cycle, you may have some touch-up maintenance things to do. So that maintenance cycle will run. But then you get to the collection cycle, and that's day 30. Day 30, and that's, again, these are somewhat nebulous numbers because if they moved in on day 15, on the 15th of the month, your day 30 will hit within 15 days, right? So that's when the collection cycle runs. And that collection cycle will run on a year's lease. It will run 11 more times inside that entire landlord cycle. So then you've got that checklist to go through 11 times, right? And making sure that they're paying on time. And then you get to the day 245 checklist, which is one of the most critical checklists in the landlord cycle. And that's 120 days prior to lease expiration. And that means you're checking on everything related to the property. You're doing a market analysis. You're making sure that your property is still the highest and best use of your equity, that you're checking on things that are easy to miss. Like, when's the last time you flushed your water heater? Okay, guys, hands in the air. Who actually has flushed their water heater once a year like they're supposed to? No one does, because there's no checklist for it, right? So it's just one of those things that, when's the last time you checked the deductible on your insurance policy? Things like that once a year, that should be done.
I'm thinking about flushing water heater. Never in my life.
Okay. Well, so everybody else is doing it except you. So you're the one skewing the average. So the point of it, though, is that you're doing the market analysis, property analysis, and then the resident analysis. And then, and then you're finally, before you even submit, you re-underwrite these people, because you're talking 8 months ago, you rented to them based on assumptions that you don't know that are true today. You rented to them 8 months ago thinking that there was a 2-income earner. Well, maybe one of them ran off with a babysitter, or the pool boy or whatever, right? Like you don't know, right? I mean, life happens, or maybe one of them lost their job or passed away or something along those lines. You may not know, but you don't want to rest just because they paid rent for 8 months. You want to make sure that you do re-underwrite them, and you're checking and making sure that you're not relying on the assumptions that you made when you first rented
Boy,
to
if
them.
one of the income earners is no longer there, but they're still making their rent payments on time every time, do you actually think about putting them out?
We'll have that conversation. I mean, what we can do, because again, my job is to mitigate risk, and the conversation sometimes it will have the conversation like, look, I don't want to set you up to fail,
Okay.
but I don't know it makes sense for me to renew the lease if you're making X and you are running so lean right now that if something bad happens, because life will show up, I don't want I don't want things to go sideways, and then you're in a really bad place. Let's just have that conversation now. So honestly, I will. I will have that conversation with them, and sometimes it doesn't. It's not often that happens, but if their income changes substantially, the last thing in the world I want to do is have to evict somebody and just keep them allowing themselves to set them up to fail, because they're not going to. I mean, sometimes they just need that pattern interrupt because they're just going to keep going status quo.
Okay. All right. So you've got a lot of little checklists in your process, and you've got a cycle.
Yep.
And it's a people business, and you're selling time. See, I've been paying attention. All right. Now, we're kind of just scratching the surface here. And I know that you have a workshop that you do on this. It's the Landlord Masterclass, and it's scrolling right across the screen there right now. And it's coming up on April the 30th. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with this class.
Yeah, I'm actually, so I know that you're all over the place, but I mean, I'm actually going to be coming to Atlanta, and I'm going to be coming April 30th and May 1st. So if this particular time doesn't work for you, or that date doesn't work for you, I'll be at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be a 2-hour class, and this is not one of those. It's $34 for one person. I think the second person's $15.
Wow.
But if you, yeah,
Is that a Saturday,
cheap.
Sunday?
It's a Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
It's a Friday, Saturday. So,
Okay.
what I will
I'll be here.
just for what's that?
I'll be in town, dude. We're gonna get a
Cool.
meal together.
And I'm going to get a good cigar.
Yes. Yes.
I may buy. I mean, I may out of pity buy one of the bad ones from you, but
I got to tell you all that Mark submitted a house for property pairing, and it's coming next week. We shot the video on it yesterday, and it's a beautiful story. And we link it to a video that Mark put up on Vimeo. I don't want to say a lot about it now. I don't want to be a spoiler, but I paired that project with one of my very best cigars and one of my very best whiskeys, and that's coming next week.
Well, I appreciate that, brother.
Talk to us about the workshop.
It's a great story. Yeah. Well, thank you. But yeah, so the it's just a 2-hour thing. It's $34. You get a copy of the Time Wealthy Investor sent to you. So really we're going to be covering exactly all this stuff. So even if you're not a reader, you might say, well, I'm not really a reader, but this stuff is really relevant to me because I've got a couple of properties and I really would like to grow more. But you can start to see where this stuff would make sense for you. Just come. It's not going to be here's what I'll tell you that it's not, if I can just put your mind at ease.
Yes.
It's not going to be a pitch fest like I'm a timeshare salesman for, 2 hours, beating you into buying a course. Yeah. Do I have a course? Yes. And I'll tell you about it if you're interested, but it's going to be about 90 straight minutes of straight teaching, possibly a little longer. And then we're going to do a Q&A. And then if you're interested in the course, I'll tell you about it. But other than that, that's really the only thing I'll be doing. It's $34 for you get the book, and you get the 2-hour class. And here's the thing. If you get to the end of it and you didn't think it was worth that, I'll even give you your money back. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. So there's really no risk.
All right. It's landlordmasterclass.net / ATL.
Yep.
There it is, rolling across the screen one more time. Landlordmasterclass.net / ATL. And man, it's been great to see you, Mark, and to reconnect and talk about some of these things. And I know I've talked to you about these things before, but I forget some of the things. It's like, watching a movie the second time around, and you see some things and remember some things or hear some things that you didn't pick up on before. And I don't know if you said that thing about selling time, but I like that. I'm going to hang on to that one. I'll remember that the next time we talk.
I, I feel like we learn so much from one another, and and honestly too is that because I had to get really clear in my message, and if I don't know how much time we have left, but I just want to make a real quick point here.
Sure, go ahead.
When I first started this out, when I first started Landlord Coach, I'm in my 5th year of business now as Landlord Coach, and when I first started this out, I was like, who's your avatar? And of course, it's like everybody who needs, right? I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, right?
I've got an avatar story I'll tell you one of these days offline, not here.
Okay. But it was like anytime you start who's your client avatar, when you are saying anyone who, you just stop right there, because it's really like, hold on, do you really want anyone who? Because I would say like, well, I want new investors, I want seasoned investors, and I want property managers. Think about that for just a second. Those are 3 completely different avatar with 3 completely different conversations that I need to have. I mean, they have very different problems. And honestly, I've worked with property managers, and property managers have wanted to come to me, even though I've got this moniker. But just because I'm aiming at the bullseye, and the bullseye actually is for me, people who already have properties or are ready to buy properties and know what I'm about and are ready to do this, not somebody who's making, no offense, $16 an hour and barely making it. I can't help them. There's not much I can do with them. But when I'm really clear about that, just because I'm aiming at the bullseye doesn't mean people from the 8, 9, or 10 ring aren't going to come in. Right. I mean, I'll take a couple 10s, if I'm aiming at the bullseye, but that for me was really important when I started getting really clear in terms of what that conversation needs to look like. So yeah, it was, and it was a little scary. I'm not going to lie, but getting really clear in terms of who I wanted to speak with, it's one of the best things I ever could have done.
All right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think up your final parting shot tonight. And I want to thank you for being here, and thank all of you for joining us tonight at Flipping America RIA. This is our second of the live stream only meetings, and we're doing some evaluating to see how it's going. So I hope you let us know what you think about it. And I just want to say, I believe that in listening to Mark tonight, you see here a gentleman who knows what he's about, thinks what he thinks about, and is able to articulate that, and really has a heart to help. So I hope you'll plan to come out on April the 30th and May the 1st, landlordmasterclass.net/ATL. $34, money back guarantee. What have you got to lose? And who knows, you might see me there too, because it's happening in Atlanta. And all right, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you for the final word. Thanks.
Well, the best thing that I can say is how I wrap up every session is that there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. And when you really focus on the things that really truly matter, then you realize how irrelevant money really is, and time is the really only thing that matters.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for helping make this possible. We'll see you all very soon.